I'm saying? But anyway, so what I did for this one is it was really cool to be back in your classroom. So thank you for including me in there. And I loved how you were making those connections with your students, you know, getting that previous experience and knowledge, especially with academic vocabulary, which is one of the things we talked about. You know what I'm saying?
And I've not been very good about teaching vocabulary explicitly in the past. Like, I know you're supposed to, but then I just don't, because I get in the role of like, this is the lesson I'm gonna do, and then like, I throw it up on the screen and I'm like, yo, there's a word that y'all probably don't know.
Right. Well, and then I thought about this too with like, you had the Frayer model, which I think is super supportive with the examples and non-examples, and then just the visual representation. And then also how you just kind of showed the example of the Frayer model with that non-academic word.
Oh, dog?
Yeah, so they could practice the structure before applying it to content. And then obviously you're super comfortable with technology and could see that was something you incorporate into the classroom.
I'm a Google whiz.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to introduce you to my son sometime because he's a kind of a real technical person as well. So I just wanted to give you a moment to just kind of give me a little bit. I kind of wrote down the standard that you were focused on from your, thank you for sending me those materials. I included them there too. I'm just going to stop for a minute and let you kind of explain, because I just saw a snapshot. Give me some feedback or give me some responses of how the lesson went.
That was 3 days ago, but it seems like so long.
Yeah, it does.
I had to put my unit plan then because I do not remember. So we have come from 4 days of me being out, but they were, in my absence, they had an ed puzzle, a Nearpod, and a Newsella. And with the Newsella, it was like facts about, there's 10 different Native American groups. It was a text set. So like the day before I got sick, they had just started it, and I was like, okay, you two, which one do you want? Alaska, which one do you want? Plains, which one do you want? Northwest. So like, they had started it for like 10 minutes the day before I got sick. And so that was that next day was easy for that subplan. It was finish reading your article, answer the questions in this chart. I can add the template for like that assignment in there, because it was just background facts, and then it had that standard question in there about how the physical environment affects the Native Americans. Let's see if I could.
Oh, thank you.
So it's not going to email you that I shared it. I'm just going to link it in the notes.
Okay.
If that works.
Sure.
But like, you will have access.
Okay.
Right here. Oh, there we go. Right here. And so that was like, so they had to get just basic who, it might have been the Yupik and the Inuit, like specific tribes, like Iroquois if they were up in New England, where and when, like what part of the U.S. And then this is where they had sentence frames, because their articles talked about how some of them, like Northwest, had heavy rain, so that yes, they had lush lumber, but also the rain made the mud, and then that makes certain crops impossible, or they had a lack of rain, or they had rocky terrain like around here. So they, and from what got turned in, most of them used those sentence frames pretty well.
And then, were any other things about kind of the lesson or the background or anything else from context-wise before we move on?
You mean like before, like in the days before this lesson?
Yeah, or just anything else from that day.
So so the day I got back, see. So I have my like agenda on Docs, and then I have like the slideshow that I shared. I have that
Mhm.
for a few days,
Yeah, that's great.
and I'm trying to remember without having to open it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's okay.
so I went back and did a lesson that I like wanted to do before, but then things got pushed back, and then I got sick.
Right.
Was a general one of how stories become history, and that particularly in the Native American groups, a lot of it is storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like the oral tradition.
Because some of them didn't even have a written language, and so it's how does the story that I tell my grandkid, how does that like become history? So they read that Newsella article, and they were supposed to take notes on it, but it may have been slightly unstructured, or they might have just been sixth graders on a Friday not wanting to think.
Yeah,
And then so then from that, so I had them. I only gave them about 25 minutes on the vocabulary
right.
prayers, and then we went into an ed puzzle that went over the Dakota Access Pipeline. So they needed to know reservation and oil and
Yeah.
sovereign. And then after that, we looked at a map and the museum website.
Okay. Well, that's
So
perfect.
that showed like their arguments
Yeah.
of why they protested.
Well, that's great. That just helps me kind of know what.
And then I finished it up yesterday with a race response, which I have not looked at, so I don't know how they did yet.
Well, that was the other question I wanted to ask about. Is I'm just kind of collecting information from you about just getting a chance to reflect on the lesson. Did you feel like the lesson went as you had planned it?
Mostly,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, and what was the student work like from the vocabulary
I
using the
should probably
FAIR
look at
model? So let's talk. I'm going to give you a minute to just reflect on that, and that'll help us determine an action step for next
Okay.
time.
So it looks like 6 actually finished it.
Mhm.
Some of them probably just didn't turn it in. I also kind of rushed them because I wanted to get the end puzzle in. So I probably should have let them have the whole period
Okay.
instead of trying to rush it to get an end puzzle in.
Okay. So about 6 students turned it in.
6 turned it in
Okay. And how many students?
out of 20.
Okay.
But I can see if they like did it and just like didn't turn, because Aaron should have finished it. Oh no, Aaron didn't finish it. Okay, so I should have not cut them off then, because it looks like some did finish it but didn't turn it in, like didn't actually like click it to turn it. He almost finished. But I had them do 2 words, so it looks like they all got 1 word done, but may not have finished the second word. Let's see them put pictures in now. It looks like most of them did 1 of the 2 words that they were supposed to do. They didn't turn it in.
Okay. So what I'm thinking about is, I wanted to show this to you while you were here, of like the different Boston's Best, and we're going to be kind of talking about it as a whole building because we're all kind of new together doing this work. I'm just going to rush over here to pull the binder that I used from before. But it kind of basically goes through like kind of the tenets or what we think is kind of important about Boston's Best. So if I can pull up my binder with it. Here it is. And what we tried to think of is like, what is Boston's Best for like instruction? And we kind of talked about it a little bit when we were doing our online meeting. And we talked to, like, here's our little visual sports and like having just clear learning targets, the academic vocabulary, which I saw in your lesson, kind of the structured interactions of how students can start to talk with one another, that gradual release, differentiation, and then how we assess and monitor how kids are doing. So we kind of thought that these were like the biggest leverage moves in that we can do during instruction. And so we met as a team today to talk about like where to start this work together. And so we're going to try to start to, in the other content areas in math and literacy, we're going to start to coach in on kind of just doing learning targets. And I noticed even doing my ELD instruction, that's kind of where I'm refining our lessons too. So I just wanted to kind of show you the work that we've done so far on that, knowing that we're going to have some professional learning on targets. It's kind of a building focus to go there. Just wanted to ask you what your background was on that. And I know you had the standard there, but I was looking, a lot of times I'll write down what the learning target is. Did you have one for the lesson, or talk to me a little bit
Yes,
more?
it wouldn't really have been visible to you because it was on like the
Okay.
small whiteboard that was on the same wall you were.
Oh, okay.
So it was there.
Oh, cool.
It just wasn't. It wouldn't have been visible. It wasn't on the screen. It was on the board.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So what?
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you.
Let me go back to my.
Let's
I
find
put
what
it with.
is,
I
yeah.
take it from the standard, and then I. Just,
That's
like,
perfect.
I can find it. Oh, it was the standard.
Okay.
I probably just copied part of the standard, like
Yeah, that's what I
how
saw.
did how have people adapted to their physical?
Yeah. And I remember I had done a unit study with that standard too, so I was with you on that. What I was thinking about when I saw that is I put this into this document because I noticed you're kind of an online person like I am. I put it under the See It models, and I just put two different examples of things that we did, and I printed it out too, just because I think it's partly sideways and all of that. But I thought it's still nice for you to have it in case paper gets lost easily. You still have a resource for it. But this is something that we had done in a previous professional development that we'll probably come back to. We started to talk about kind of like, this is a literacy example, but we could transfer it easily to social studies. But it basically was showing like what was being asked of the students, and then just different ways we could take it into an actual target, and then how it can be standards-based, how that connects to it. And sorry that the copy's a little bit and then the context of where it's at, and you can see it probably a little bit better on there. But that takes that standard and puts a what, how, and a context to it. And that was kind of what we had been studying as a building. And then that moved into, remember we talked about success criteria?
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that then you can pull out where your product is that you're monitoring and what those examples are to come up with a strong success criteria for it. So I'm just kind of throwing something bigger than what we'll have time for today. But I thought it just kind of shows how that target kind of influences the assessment and monitoring, how it influences what we're going to show them as the criteria. So that was kind of some work we'd done before. And then last year we kind of brought it in with like, there's a lot of language. Like already I could see with that academic vocabulary you're pulling in. So we started to play around with different ways we could do content and language. We put one together, and we have kind of a quick example of this with color on that, and you can see that in the example online. And then another one with just kind of the content with the language and the success criteria. And then another one where they have just the content and the language kind of separated out, so students kind of know what they're expected to do for social studies, but also some of the language that's required. In this case, it was a lot of new words or new vocabulary that they would be held accountable for. So I just wanted to kind of start to play with that with you. Why don't I just give you a minute to just look that over? I threw a lot at you. And maybe I'll stop talking, give you a few minutes, and then start processing with me what you're noticing or what you're seeing right there.
Oh, from here?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay, this is stuff in a race response.
Yeah, this is kind of like, this is some work we had done for embedded language. So I'm giving you way more than, what we could do, but I just wanted you to kind of get a context for the target piece today, since that's kind of where the first class comes best. But yes, it is like you're having a race response.
Which I'm so glad that y'all do that here, because I was in outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico for a year. It was 8 years ago now.
Right.
And it was 7th grade, but 7th grade in New Mexico is state history.
Oh, gotcha.
So I haven't done I did a little bit of Native American. It was a lot of indigenous stuff early in the year, and then it progressed up just before statehood. And it was and I was doing them every other week. It was and it was handwritten, and it was a whole page, and I was and then I attempted to do it when I moved back home to California. I attempted to do it with my freshman one time, and it didn't really go too well because I weren't familiar with the formatting, and I was like, well, it's you're citing evidence. This is just a way to make sure you got it, because I had them color code.
Right.
And then, so then I kind of gave up and stopped doing that. And then when I had my 7th graders do one. Well, I had my 7th graders do just a blur, a couple sentences based off of an article about Egypt and the Nile. And I had sentence frames according to Newsella, blah, blah, blah. And so a kid is like, oh, is this a race response? And I was like, yes, it is. It is. So I'm glad that they know that, because I'm using that for my SLO.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm doing it for 7th grade though, because I only have them for the semester, so then I can be done with the individual SLO and then focus on the joint one. But so that's what this looks like to me.
Yeah.
And then at my old school, we started claim, evidence, and reasoning. I didn't do it as often as I should, but I did do it a few times.
Yeah, and that one was kind of from somebody who was doing some literacy. We kind of tried to pick it from kind of a science text, so we could give a unanimous example to people of what that could look like in different contents. So I gave you kind of the big picture of which to see where targets fit in. But I wanted to talk to you about what you thought about maybe starting to take that idea of taking it from a standard, and starting to think about how we could formulate that, because that'll really hone in. It'll take your knowledge of the standard, it'll take that work that students are starting to do, looking at some of those examples, what style kind of hones in with you. I wanted to give you a couple of choices of the way they phrase these, and
You mean how I write it out?
Yeah, would you want to this one here? See how they have the examples for this one of just kind of content and language, just the separation of the two, or one that has them separated? What's your style for your students?
Efficiency.
Yep.
Combined one.
I like that one too. Yep. I feel that way as well. So what would it look like to either, we're kind of close to time here and I want to respond.
So are we trying to combine the target and the success criteria into one statement, or that's not what we're doing? Oh, okay.
What I want to do is I want to get solid with just writing a target, and then we can from there start to think about how we want.
Oh, it's including the language.
Right. This
target.
is content and language.
Okay.
Do you want to separate them out? Do you want to put language in your success criteria, or do you want to have a separate content target and a separate language one? I think this one works for me.
Yeah, it's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that way you have your content with your language, it's all in one. And then we could start to think about what is that going to look like when you write that for social studies. This is kind of an example for science.
Oh, okay.
But we could look at one that's coming up, or we could look at the one from the lesson that you just did to start to practice how that could look.
Because they're taking their CFA on Monday.
Oh yeah.
So I just ended this Native America,
Gotcha.
and we're going to be moving into the Maya, Inca, and Aztecs.
Okay.
And that's a long unit. The district has that as the biggest unit.
What if we did this?
And that's for 6th grade. 7th grade, totally. What am I doing in 7th grade? 7th grade, we are ending. We just did the Silk Road. We're ending Silk Road and trade and we're going into development of regions, which is culture. Oh, culture and like how does technology development of societies and how do they rise and fall?
Well, what do you think of this idea? What if we started to, let's think about it kind of an action step around this, and I usually kind of have you help me write this out, of like what you kind of want to work on, how we can accomplish it. I even thinking like we kind of reserve these times to meet together. What if we kind of use this time to be crafting some targets? We could correspond that way, and then maybe we could sit down and look at some of them the next time that we meet together, if you want. I don't know what your comfort level is on writing them or doing them.
I think the writing of them wouldn't take me very long. Like I can pull it and rearrange it.
Then that's perfect.
I'm a history major. We're trained to write. We're trained to write.
Then let's do it. Let's write an action step of what we can do in that, and then maybe I can come and see it in action.
Okay.
Like that, I would love that. So I'll kind of step away. And what do you think would be the right action step with that?
Do you mean like what I need to have done by the next time we meet?
Just something that yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And what ideally I could do, actually, is maybe I could come and see you again, doing the action step or in the process of it. Of like, if you create a target, maybe I could come in and see you, teach you toward it. You know what I mean? Like just something that frames it. I could come in at the beginning of your lesson and see you starting to share that target.
Both doing development of civilizations. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking like, when we usually do them, we usually do like kind of like a, almost like a daily, target of what the students are learning or doing for that day. Like what, do you want to just practice, like, do you want to just try one out and then I can come and see it in action, or do you want to like, how can we follow up together with it? What would be most supportive to you?
I can just add them to like my lesson plan documents. I can add them in there.
That's great.
Because I think, so what I've been doing is I'm writing one like for the week. I'm not changing it every day.
Okay.
Which I think works as like it's the vocabulary built into the ed puzzle, built into the article, built into the race response. So I kind of do it as one big thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can start changing it out daily. I just don't think of it as a daily thing. I think of it as because I'm so condensed. I have to do a year in a semester, and so I'm like.
So I'm almost wondering, like, there's probably a big picture to the standard and the target.
They've got like supporting questions.
Because I was going to ask you about that too. Like I put in.
This is from the district. Is their pacing guide.
Because I was thinking about that too, like.
Yeah, they have a unit compelling question. So, like for 6th grade's next one, that I'm starting Tuesday, what factors influence the development of complex civilizations and nations in the Western Hemisphere? And then it has the standards.
Yeah, I saw that. And then it's essential questions, and it had the like formative assessment. I was looking because you attached that. To your. I thought that was super helpful. I was looking at that.
And then she's got like. She breaks it down like there's 3 supporting questions and how long it's supposed to take.
Right.
And then she has all her resources linked.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was really supportive.
So I was like, thank you, because I've never taught this thing.
No, it looked like she had, like, so much was laid out.
It's I don't want to say too much, but it's a good problem to have that I cannot use all those resources. So I get to pick which ones I think would work. And also some of them, I think the level on some of them, I know in Newsela you can change the level, but on some of these resources, when I clicked on some of them, I questioned if I really could do it with my 6th graders. Because because like the website, like the American Indian Museum, I can't change the reading level on that, and it's not available in Spanish,
Well,
and it's not.
When I looked at this, I'm like, well, you're pulling out academic vocabulary, and I could see that they put in a lot of different assessment and monitoring and some different. I looked at your plan and I looked at that too. So I was just kind of thinking about like what would be the benefits of I call it like a shared learning target, and like how is that essential or helpful for students to know? And I thought about the essential questions or those inquiry questions that kind of raise that rigor and help drive deeper. So I was thinking if we start to think about how to take what they've given you and start to think about a target or how we can break that into something that students can be able to do. Like this one right here, they're saying what they can explain, what are they explaining, what possible language they're using, and then what is the product that you're looking for that day. In this case, you were using that FAIR model in one that I saw. So I was thinking if we start kind of supporting kids with seeing that target and thinking about that target as we're planning, I think that'll be kind of a cool way to take all of that and making it a very precise lesson. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For sure.
It's just I'm so tired.
I know.
So I look like I'm spacing out, but I'm listening.
No. Let me wrap it up. We're past time anyway.
Oh, okay.
So and I know you need to get kids. So what would be the right next step for me to support you with that action step?
Well, I don't even have Unit 3 started because we're just ending Unit 2. So like I do not have a document for Unit 3,
Yeah.
and it's not. I do it in a separate document, so I'll have to send, or I can add into the folder the separate document.
Yeah. For sure.
I might link, because I'm kind of like, I don't say OCD anymore because I don't want to like minimize people who actually were diagnosed with that. But I want this to stay one page, and if I put in if I link it, like learning target, and like link it that way, for me, I can still keep my actual step by step.
Okay.
Checklist as one page, and then you could be able to see it, and I can keep it clean.
I'm totally okay with that.
So I'll do that.
Okay, so I'll put down for follow-up actions. Maybe I'll put Ashley will share document with links to targets. Would that be? And then what would be most supportive? Would it be supportive of us to do the planning together for it, or for me to come in and see it with kids?
So that one.
Which one?
For you to come in.
Coming again? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Do you want to set a timer, or do you want to get back to you? I know you need to.
I will need to get back because Ms. Blair Quenty, are you planning on doing it with 6th to see the same group of kids again?
I can do either. I'm open to
okay,
what we do
because Ms. Blair Quenty has to do signs of suicide with 6th grade, and she says it's a Tuesday and a Thursday in the same, and it has to be done in September. Like by the end, so.
No worries. It can be whatever.
It would not be on it. And she hasn't told me. I told her to tell me.
Sure.
Okay. And I may need to email her to ask her to give me a date. So let's plan on it not being a Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay.
So because I need to.
Sure.
She has to do it this month.
And what I figure is let's get it done so that the next time we have our feedback meeting, because it's not next week.
It's 2 weeks.
Fall.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have had time to look at that, try it, and then we can debrief again. But every other Friday that we set up. Does that make sense to you?
So we'll need to do it in the next week and a half.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that gives you time to look at your calendar. And it gives you time, to touch base and see. Because I know that hopefully these models were helpful. I was just trying to pick something to kind of get.
No, I like that one. Ooh, yeah. Oh, I gotta get food back.
Nope. Perfect.